Hey, Drew Rebar, Auditing Reno 911. Thanks for watching. We're going to be watching the Librarians going crazy, getting caught in all their lies. Why do librarians need to lie? Why aren't libraries just a place for people to gather information without a bunch of political mumbo jumbo being shoved down their throats? Why can't we just go pick up books, look at computers without having everybody's sexuality thrown in our faces? What's wrong with America? Why do the librarians need to lock children in libraries with transsexuals? It's crazy. This story's crazy. Watch the story. The county employees are trying to get it removed. They've been sending me YouTube privacy notices, so I give you all permission to take it, share it, use it, and just mention the channel. I appreciate it. Tell me what you think. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Here come the crazy librarians.
Stacy McKenzie, Assistant Library Director.
And there's 5 minutes.
Yes. Jonica Ballin and I will be available to answer any questions from the board, but I'm making this summation statement to serve as support to uphold all 3 of the 1-year suspensions, and in an effort to save time and energy in the process, I won't need to speak after each defense. The events of Rainbow Fest on June 15th this year and the subsequent results were and are still traumatizing for our library staff that witnessed and were the targets of these library policy violations. Leading up to these events, library staff had several meetings specifically about security, and it was some of these specific individuals in mind because of their attempts to disrupt previous library events. This year they came prepared with extra forethought and even more aggressive plans to interfere with and to attempt to shut down this year's Rainbow Fest event. Fred Meyer engaged with a staff member about his religious views of the event, and when staff member refused to engage, he continued to bombard her in a more and more aggressive nature, yelling inappropriate questions and comments at her. The staff member was interrupted by Meyer numerous times as she tried to do her job, including interrupting her as she engaged with other attendees, as she communicated with security personnel, and as she worked to maintain safety and order in the event. He was argumentative when she asked him to return to the free speech zone based on his comments of protest of the event. Security had to step in, and PD was called to help carry out our requests for him to comply with library policy.
This is obstructing the entry point for our event.
The entry point you told me was over there.
Sir, I'm not here to argue with you. I'm not going to leave. I'm here to do my job.
I'm here to do my job.
And you are preventing me from doing my
Really?
job.
Well, then go get
You are asked to leave the premises for the remainder of the day.
Wrong.
Okay, you are now trespassing, and we will call Washoe County
Trespassing
Sheriff's
what?
Office.
Call him.
Oh, we trespass over here.
So why are you guys trespassing him?
I've asked him to leave for the day for obstructing my ability to do my job according to library conduct policy, and he is becoming argumentative. I told you that the free speech zone for signs like this is 50 feet from the perimeter of the library's function.
You're not telling me where my free speech is.
I'm going to step away, Raul, unless you enforce the trespass.
Okay.
Thank you.
Time out, brother. Give me trespass.
What?
Oh, this is private property.
So we've already had the sheriff's office coming up for the other issue.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
we'll let them make the decision, and then we're gonna go by whatever the sheriff's office says.
everybody will know the statute.
Exactly. So you guys do what you do until they get here, and then we all agree that whatever they decide, that's what we're gonna do.
Sure.
Okay, great, perfect.
Sandee Tibbet brought children to the event to gain access inside, and once the event started, she and 2 others revealed insulting and child inappropriate signage, including the logo of a known LGBTQ hate group, all under the guise of free speech, which we allowed. She wandered around the room, refusing to stop blocking exit aisles, was argumentative with staff, and lost track of the children she brought with her. Her disruption traumatized attendees of the event, including upsetting children and parents who came to the event to enjoy the inclusive programming in a safe place and to participate in early literacy education. Her activities and disregard for other attendees distracted staff who were trying to maintain the event for legitimate attendees.
It's a lot for me personally, but you know what?
I feel like standing. Thank you, though. Yes, but there's people behind you who can't see. If you'd like to stand, you can come to the back over here if you'd like.
This year we are actually doing a our friends provide us a parody of Shrek. It's called Shrek. And so we have a lot of the same songs, a lot kind of different stuff, kind of a different take on the story, more from
You're obstructing view if you want to come back. So.
But
There's nobody behind me.
we are unfortunately
No. Deb,
There's nobody behind me. There are people behind you. You're being asked to move behind the seat. You're welcome to hold your sign up. You just need to move behind where the seats are.
You need to get out of the aisle. Go. Go.
You've been told to go behind where the seats are. Look, there's a spot for you right here. You're welcome to hold up your sign.
Who am I blocking exactly? Who am I blocking exactly?
You have been asked
Who am I blocking exactly, Deb? I can stand here if I want to.
Get out of the aisle and go in the back, please.
I am fine right where I'm at.
You know, you guys ask
Why?
too much.
Why are you perverting our kids?
We're not.
Yeah, you are. You're perverting our kids.
You're breaking conduct, please. Security's here.
Good.
Security's here. Here's a copy of her code of conduct. And you've been blocking the aisle.
What I know.
Okay.
This is the aisle,
Now you're
people.
blocking people behind you.
And, Raul and library staff.
Yeah.
Nice try.
Yeah. She won't have a seat blocking people.
Raul, who's standing behind me? You? I know, right?
It doesn't matter. You've been directed for safety
No,
to have
I
a
have
seat.
a constitutional right to stand here, hold my sign, just like I am. I'm not blocking the aisle.
What child did you come with?
It's none of your business.
What child? It is my business. What child did you come with?
It's none of your
Go
business.
get your child.
Child policy.
We're gonna ask you to
How did
leave.
I get a wristband if I had an unattended
Well,
child?
is your child still with you?
I don't know.
Where's your child?
I'm watching the show.
You need to know where your child is. Or it's an unattended child.
She's right there.
We're about to ask you to take your child and leave.
No, it's a public show. It's a public event.
But you're arguing and you're being disruptive.
I'm not. You're disruptive. You're bringing attention to me. I am
because
standing
you're bringing
here
attention to yourself.
with nobody behind me. See, that's behind me. I'm not in the aisle. See, I'm not in the aisle.
Okay, we're not
I am
blocking the
standing
aisle.
here.
I'm gonna let you stand here.
Good.
So we don't disrupt anymore. Do not move into the aisle until it's time to go. And then get your child and leave at the end of the performance. Would you like a copy of our policy so you understand what we're asking of you?
No, I don't need it.
All right.
He's here to interview you.
Do you mind if I ask you 2 questions? I'm with RJ.
She then came back after the event with false reports of a crime and got in staff's faces and personal space, yelling and drawing a crowd to agitate attendees and staff.
Debbie? Yeah, I want to know why the doors are locked on the library and my friend's granddaughter couldn't get out. You would not let her out. Why is that?
Her grandfather was waiting.
Why is the
outside
doors
door.
locked and why can't they get out?
Couldn't she get out? Why is the door locked?
I don't have a comment for you. I wasn't in there. I don't know.
So who is
Doors
at the
can't
door?
be locked.
The doors are locked because people are trying to get in.
So we can't get out.
Against the entry policy. The emergency exits are open.
NFPA 101.7, which is
I don't
National
enforce
Fire Safety.
And why?
Well,
I don't interpret regulations.
Okay, so who would not let her out? Because that is holding somebody against their will.
I don't know.
That's
ma'am.
holding somebody against their will. Jonica, you know who is doing the door. Who is on the door? Who is on the door and would not let a girl come out? I want to know who was on the door because you had the doors locked. You had the doors locked. You had the doors locked and you would not. You had the doors locked and you would not let a girl out. She was feeling sick. They wouldn't let her out because she didn't have a kid with her or an adult with her. Why? Yes. Who was on the? Wouldn't let her out.
So she went in.
Yes, and she
and
wanted
feels
to come
better
out
and
because
wanted to
she was sick.
Is she still
Stacey?
in there?
No, she's not still in there. She's out.
all right.
But when she wanted to come out, you wouldn't let her out.
She's
So
out
who was
now.
on the? Oh, that doesn't matter.
She's out now.
Why wouldn't you let her out when she wanted out?
I'm not sure the situation. I can check into it, but she's out
Let's-
now. Is she safe? Is she okay?
Why
she
did
need
you
any
let her?
additional-
Why was she entrapped in there? Why couldn't she come out on her own free will?
Does she need
Why couldn't
any
she come
help?
out on her own free will? Deb? Who was on the door? Why couldn't she come out on her own free will? You had her.
She's out now.
It doesn't. I don't care.
We've
She is
answered your
traumatized.
question.
She is traumatized.
I am so sorry about
She's
that.
traumatized
I
because
will
of
look
your
into-
staff.
Emergency exit. We're blocking the door right now.
Yeah.
Everybody stop for a minute.
She was sick.
You are too close to library staff. Take a step back, please.
Thank you. And emergency
We are in
exit,
front of
please.
an emergency exit. I'm going to ask you to back up.
I want to
need
know
you to back up.
why she was not allowed
If you don't move
outside.
from the emergency exit.
I am on a public sidewalk in front of the public library.
Remove yourself from the
Right now, you're
emergency
blocking
exit.
ADA.
You're about to be removed. You're about to be removed.
Oh,
If we can
excellent.
talk
Remove
in a-
me then.
If we can talk in a calm manner.
I want to know why
we will get to the
she was
bottom
not
of it.
allowed out when she wanted to come out of the library.
Okay. If you
You
will let me
did. You
If-
did,
if
Jonathan.
you will-
You did.
My granddaughter.
Nobody is engaging anymore unless you're talking to me.
You unlawfully
Okay.
detained my granddaughter.
You unlawfully detained her.
I'm going to look into it. I'm going to look
Excellent.
into the situation.
Good.
If
Who was
you
on the
will
door?
Maintain calmness. I will
Oh
find
yeah,
out what's
it's
going
gonna fire
on.
me up when you won't let a child out of a library, a public library.
My husband.
Okay.
Lawfully,
Came to the door
unlawfully
to
detained.
receive her.
Okay.
First, I told her just to go outside. He was out there.
Okay. If you
She
will,
came
I
back
think
and
I
said
have
they
all the
won't let me
information I
out.
need. It's her child. Whose
No,
child
it's
is
my
it?
granddaughter.
Your granddaughter. Okay. Then you're out of the conversation,
I could be.
and I will talk to you now. Your granddaughter.
No, my
was
my granddaughter was
I
with her
said
too.
we're
No, my
done.
granddaughter was with her too.
There was 2 children.
Yes.
Okay, we get a lot of the information here. Okay, let's calm down. Let's go over here. If you all would like to wait right here, I will look into the situation and I will find out what was going on.
Thank you,
And
Stacy.
I will tell you too. I'm gonna go look into this situation and find out what was going on. I expect the yelling to stop, okay? If you feel there's a problem here, yelling and screaming is not the way to do it.
And what was I getting inside there when I was trying to enjoy?
You weren't getting yelling. I'll be right
You
back.
were harassing me though.
Okay, Sandy, just got to be calm. This is their problem, not ours.
I know.
They've broken the law.
Yeah, and unfortunately, she traumatized her granddaughter. So that's
It's illegal. That's against the fire code.
Sure, Deb. If that was your kid trying to get out of the library and they wouldn't let her out, wouldn't you be upset?
No, she can only smirk.
I know. It's all right.
Okay, so my understanding, I didn't know when this happened or anything. So my understanding it was the end of the last performance.
Yep.
And I don't know if you all had already left the area or what, but we have a standard policy of protecting children. And when they were wanting to leave, we're unlocking the door right now because of security. And our person who was manning the door did not know which adults they were with. So she was trying to make sure that they weren't leaving without their adults, because once they go out of those doors, they can't come back in. So she was asking them, where are your adults? And I don't know what the holdup was, but they were not being held against their will. We were just checking for security for where their adults were.
Well, so
I'm sorry if the children were upset about that.
Is they went into the bathroom for a while because I was still inside. And I didn't see them go in the bathroom. I thought I'd sent her on her way with her grandfather. And all of a sudden they came back and sat down next to me. And I said, I thought you went outside with Chico. And she said, they wouldn't let me out. So I got up and walked her to the door, and he was waiting outside at the door, and they wouldn't let her out. So she was at the door twice. And I was told she cannot go out. I said, she's sick. Her grandfather's right here. They said, she cannot go out unless you go with her.
Yes, and we didn't know that you were sending them out with another adult.
Yes, she knew
who did
that.
not know.
She knew that at the door, the lady with the hat.
She did not know.
She did. I said, that's her grandfather.
Well, I don't know. At whatever point they left, you were in there with them. At what point they were sent out, whether they were with you, whether they were always with an adult.
So we'll watch the film and
Okay,
then we'll
you bet.
verify my story.
All right.
And thank thank you for sharing that the doors are in fact locked.
They are.
That's illegal.
Yes.
Against fire code.
Actually, we have several fire doors.
Drew Rybar was aware and was told many times of the library space closure. Services were redirected and available on the bookmobile at the event. However, he still tried to force his way into the children's program, taking advantage of a moment when an authorized staff member was exiting the building. He then blocked the doorway, violently pushing the door open and wedging his foot in the doorway, arguing with two staff who were again telling him he could not come into the building. He continued to engage with them until I exited the door, forcing him to step back and let him know that his conduct was dangerous and unacceptable. His videos show this.
10 a.m.
So it's open now.
I should be able. I should be able to walk in the doors unaccompanied, without a child, without a minor.
Like I said, as long as you're not hindering them.
Right, as long as I'm just filming and keeping my mouth shut.
They didn't have.
No!
You're open at 10.
No, we're not open.
You're not open? Hang on.
We are not
But the schedule says you're open from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. today, right?
We're doing story time. Story time. Story time. Story time. Story time. Please, sir.
Oh, hang on. You're open from 10 a.m. You're open from. Trespass me, please. You're open from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. according to the sign, right?
Nope, not today.
Not today.
We have
so.
posted Stacy McKenzie, I'm the assistant library director. This
So the
was a
whole-
disturbance, and if you make another disturbance with this, which is outside our code of conduct, then we will ask
This
you to
says that
leave.
you're open from 10 to 4, though.
We are
So
not
if you're
open today. It has
open
been
from 10 to
posted several
4,
places.
10 a.m.
So it's open now.
I should be able. I should be able to walk in the doors unaccompanied, without a child.
No!
Yes.
After the event, staff had an unscheduled debriefing meeting where we went over the numerous policy violations and as a group decided who would receive the suspensions for the most egregious of the policy violations. Director Scott was not involved in that decision. When appeals were submitted, I spoke with volunteer and attendee witnesses and revisited the issues with staff. It was unanimous that these individuals violated library policy in a purposeful and orchestrated manner. Security staff who witnessed the interactions were extremely complimentary of how staff handled the issues and agreed that these individuals were in violation of policy and that appropriate actions were taken. These suspended individuals constantly speak against library staff and specifically against Drag Story Hour. They target staff maliciously on social media and make unfounded, wild, and slanderous accusations about crimes committed by staff. Most of them don't even have library cards and only come to those events that they complain about. They came to the event on June 15th with the sole intent to distract and disrupt. Unfortunately, that is exactly what they did. No one should be surprised that they upped their game to become disruptive, both inside the event and violent outside the event, based on their past actions and commentary about our staff and our programs. Anything less than upholding the suspensions for less than the year given would be interpreted as an approval of their behavior and would encourage them to repeat said behavior at future events that they just don't like. It would be a slap in the face of the program attendees and volunteers who had to witness their disruptive and violent behavior. More importantly, it would be a professional and personal insult to library staff who work so hard to uphold and maintain library policy and integrity for their own safety and for the safety and enjoyment of all library patrons and program attendees. There's no question these individuals intentionally and knowingly violated library policy, and there should be no question that their suspension is upheld for the full 365 days.
Thank you. Sandee Tibbet, you have 5 minutes.
Sandee Tibbet for the record. Harassment is defined as aggressive pressure and intimidation and violates NRS 200-571. Discrimination is the unjust treatment of different categories of people and violates NRS 233010. As evidenced by my 34-minute video I provided to this board, to legal counsel, and to Dave Solero, and per the Constitution, I did nothing wrong. The U.S. Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and every NRS code supersedes any library policy. Stacy McKenzie and other library staff victimized me during the event. I was harassed and intimidated with the threat of security and then discriminated against when library leadership suspended my library privileges for the year, even though there were 2 other people inside the event peacefully protesting and holding similar signs with the exact same logo on it as mine. Why just me? Leadership is claiming I violated Washoe County Code 80520 by not getting approval to display my sign with the Nevada Mass Resistance logo during the event. Washoe County Code 80520 states it is unlawful for any person to solicit or offer to sell any goods, merchandise, or any services on any property owned or being leased or rented by Washoe County. Please clarify what goods or services was I selling, besides freedom of speech, that day, and explain why I was the only one targeted with this nonsense. Again, 2 other people had the exact same logo on their signs, but no suspension for them. I moved to the back of the room when asked, and I cleared the aisle when staff commanded me to do so. I spoke to no one unless spoken to, and never once did I put my sign over my head and block anyone's view, nor did I push it towards anyone. Where's your proof? Everybody was videoing, where's your proof? As you can see in the picture, someone else is holding their sign up over their head during the dance portion of the event, not blocking anyone's view, yet I'm the one being targeted and punished. Yes, I did say I don't know, when aggressively asked for the location of my grandkids, while I was surrounded by a handful of triggered library staff. I didn't want them to know their location because they were angry. And for the record, my granddaughter is 10 years old and was supervised by someone over 13 years of age, as per your unattended children policy. Both NRS 379120 and 379040 were violated by the library leadership when they unilaterally decided to close North Valley's public library to the public. NRS 379040 states the library and reading room of any consolidated county, district, or town library must forever remain free and accessible to the public, subject to such reasonable regulations as the trustees of the library may adopt. This board never voted to adopt the closing of this location to the public for this event. This is another instance of the library's leadership showing a complete disregard for proper procedures, thereby risking legal action against the county and this board. This is so-called malfeasance and is grounds for dismissal. My denial letter states a thorough investigation was conducted by interviewing staff and patrons who attended the drag story hour. And because of these interviews, I was found guilty of violating multiple library policies. The 14th Amendment clearly states that the government cannot deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Procedural due process refers to the procedures that the government must follow before it deprives an individual of life, liberty, or property, which includes the right to notice and a fair hearing. My due process rights were infringed upon when legal counsel failed to provide me with the written legal notice, which is required by NRS 241033. When meeting to consider a person's character, misconduct, competence, or health, or to consider an appeal of examination results. Do you see the hypocrisy here? Staff can surround me in my personal space, intimidate me, and attempt to block me from watching the event, yet I am the one accused and found guilty of violating policy when I confront them outside after the event when I learned we were locked in the library and our kids were unlawfully detained and held against their will. Washoe County employees have violated NRS statutes and my civil rights. Where's their accountability? Where?
Do my fellow trustees now?
Yeah, Ms. Tibbet, could you stay for some questions?
Ms. Tibbet?
Yes.
At the podium.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the questions. I do believe, Ms. Tibbet, that some of my fellow board members were possibly in attendance at one of these events. some of these board members?
This is true.
Only at the downtown story hour?
This is correct.
Okay, so let me just really quick back up. We've got 2 different events happening on 2 different dates, 2 different locations. So you went to North Hills was June 15th.
Correct.
When that one was, where you're saying the whole library was closed down. So to get in the entire library was for that event.
Correct.
Okay. And they let you in, you had a child.
Correct.
Okay. I've said this before, and I don't know, I think some of the other board members were there, but I'm shocked that they let you in.
Me too.
To begin with.
Since they know me so well.
Since your history. So I do have a few questions. So you were let in the main library that was completely closed. Did you get a wristband to get in the North Hills on June 15th?
I
You
did.
had one of these wristbands?
Yes.
And you got in, and the whole library was for this event?
Correct.
Okay, so I saw the video, and you were here in your seat, and then did you have your sign out before they let you in, or did you pull your sign out once you were in?
I pulled it out after I was inside, sitting
Okay.
down.
But they knew who you were?
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
So-
you heard them say that they prepared days beforehand just
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah. So, were you asked to leave at that time, to leave that event that day in North Hills?
No,
Okay, so at that event?
I was
you stayed-
threatened.
You stayed for the whole thing, and then
But
your
no.
granddaughter was locked in, but no one ever said, hey, you gotta go?
Nope, not
Okay.
one time.
That was not when
Security,
you were
no.
surrounded, okay. These things that you passed out to us, these are pictures all from North Hills?
Correct.
Okay.
North Valleys.
Sorry, North Valley. It's just what it says on your card. Okay, so these are all North Valley pictures.
Correct.
So your suspension, Ms. Tibbetts, what you were given at the next event at downtown.
On 620, correct.
Okay. Was it referencing the events that happened the before?
Correct.
Okay. So how did you get into the downtown event?
I walked in.
Okay. So they let you in?
About halfway in, I was ambushed, not too far inside the
Okay.
library.
Okay. 'Cause the
And
event
Chair
was in
Silva
one
was there, she
particular room.
witnessed it.
Okay. Well, we definitely saw earlier with the library's testimony, there, and the pictures, not exactly customer service oriented temperaments. Yeah. And we just saw that earlier on display. And I saw the crowding, Ms. Silver was there, we saw all the video. It's hard to decipher, all the events. But it is no shock that it's coming to you and that, everything that transpired. Like I said, I'm still shocked that they let you in. Even if your sign wasn't out. So that might have been a little lack of leadership and, proper direction even from the start. So I just wanted to clarify some of those things, and I'll turn it over to my fellow board. Thank you.
Just one further question of clarification. You were not suspended on June 13th.
No, I wasn't suspended on June 15th. I got the notice on the 20th that I was suspended.
At the downtown library?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Trustee Miller?
Yes. Trustee Rupp, for the record, through you to Trustee Jacks. I think that if you give a little bit more thought, you would think that the library staff was following their policy, which was to allow an adult with a child to come into the extra hour. And the intent from those who came was this time to bring a child to gain admittance.
Sure.
What was your intent when you entered with the child?
In my chair, and I was quiet. Stacy McKenzie approached me. I spoke to no one. Library staff approached me. I spoke to no one.
But you don't
I didn't put the
support-
sign in anybody's face.
You
I was in the
don't support
front
Drag
row.
Story Hour, madam, so for you even to.
Why are
be
you
there-
arguing with me? You asked me a question, I'm answering
I am,
it,
I'm saying,
so.
but your intent to be there would seem to be disruptive in its
It
very
wasn't
nature.
disruptive. Did you watch the video? Did you watch it?
I was never. able
Vice
to
Chair Ruff?
download it.
I sent it to you.
You did, and it was.
And you didn't
through a
watch it.
second party,
That's
and it did
malfeasance
not
on your
download.
part.
I didn't think so.
So let's go back, because I think what Trustee Ruff was getting to was, in light of your displeasure with the Drag Queen Story Hour, you in fact did arrive to have a grandchild attend the Story Hour, is that correct?
Yes.
It's the only way you can get in.
It is the only way we can get in. And we've been in front of this board many times, and none of you, the library leadership, none of you would even put this on the agenda to talk about it. Why, okay, I got a question. Why were you so eager to put the challenges, the book challenges on the agenda, but we couldn't put Drag Queen Story Hour on there
We're going
to
to
discuss
stick
it?
to tonight's agenda, and there are lots of issues all over.
I mean, we put the book challenges on the agenda.
Appeal tonight,
Yes.
and I just wanted to clarify what you are appealing is your suspension that you were notified of on the 20th.
Yes,
which you
but
assume was a result of the behavior, or alleged behavior, I should say, on the 15th.
correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a comment through you. The thought I did put into the comment was, it would have been difficult for library staff to say, whoa, you can't come in even though you got a child. We know you. We're still not going to let you in. We'd rather deal with the backlash of that than having a known disruptor come in and then now see what happens. So my thought was, just to the hindsight of, they probably had to let her in because she showed up with a child, but just because you show up with a child, you have to let everybody in? You have to let everybody in that's holding a child's hand to come and Drag Queen Story Hour.
Yes.
That's the library.
Trustee Jacks, do you want to direct questions to the
I'm not
library
talking
staff?
to you, Director Scott.
I understand, but you may want to direct the questions.
My question is, I mean, it would seem like library staff, or somebody could say, look, we see you brought a child, but we still aren't going to let you in based on our forethought of possible security issues with you. What if a person showed up looking drunk with a beer? Would you let them in with a child?
Trustee Jackson, I don't think this is an appropriate line of questioning, only because it's making presumptions on both sides.
Because she showed up with a child, so I
don't
didn't
think-
give her a right to get in.
She was allowed in, and she did sit down.
Okay.
That much is a fact.
Right, and I was just saying, it's odd that they would let her in. It would be like letting in a drunk person just because it's their child.
That's not the case. Thank you. They let her in because she had a child, and you're saying your intent was to attend Drag Queen Story Hour.
Yes.
Okay, so let's stick to the facts that we can all agree upon. You were allowed entry, as is the procedure for the library, and then someone approached you while you were seated in a chair.
Correct.
And what did that individual ask you?
To lower my sign.
And what happened after you?
She called security.
I'm sorry?
Then she called security. Because my sign, I'll show you. You saw the video. I'm sitting down in a chair. I have my phone right here. One hand has my phone, one has my sign. And I'm leaning forward. And I'm like this. That's how I was sitting. That bothered her.
And did you get up and leave voluntarily from the reading hour, or you were asked to leave? I'm unclear about that.
No, I was never asked to leave. I was asked to sit down, to clear the aisle that was already clear. I was, I was never asked, I was commanded. I think there was one library staff member that was actually nice and asked me and said, please. But I was asked, commanded to clear the aisle, move back in the back of the room because I am blocking everyone's view.
But I'm unclear, and this is not a court of law, and this isn't an evidentiary hearing, but I'm unclear about something, even having watched the video.
Mm-hmm.
You were seated the entire time during the reading hour?
No, at the end of the program,
So
they
you
did the
stayed
last,
throughout the
yes.
program?
I did what?
You stayed, you remained?
Oh, yeah,
With
to
your
the end.
child, grandchild, to
Yes.
listen to the reading hour?
Yes, yes.
And then, at the conclusion of the program, then you were approached. I'm just.
No, okay, so at the end of the program, they did the last song and dance, and everybody stood up at first, and then library staff said, no, everybody please sit down. And I didn't want to sit down. I wanted to stand up. It was almost to the end. They asked me to move to the back of the room because I was blocking views. I did. I moved to the back. And then I moved out of the aisle. And then I was surrounded by them in my personal space, being harassed and intimidated and threatened. They called security again. I have no idea why. Stacy McKenzie had her hand up in front of my camera, all up in my face. And then it ended and we left.
Then you received the letter on the 20th.
Correct.
What is the date that the drag queen story hour was at the downtown library?
It's on the 20th. So she went to attend the 20th.
Because you were there on the 20th.
Correct.
Trustee Ruff and I were both there at different really points in time, but we were both there. Okay. So is your appeal based on the original, based on the suspension, based on North Valleys, the North Valleys incident? I'm just trying to.
It's based on the whole thing.
All of it?
Yes.
Well, but the suspension was based on North Valleys, correct?
Right. It's just delivered.
I don't know, maybe you can ask them that. I didn't have the, you know, I wasn't the one that issued the suspension, so I'm not sure what it's based off. My understanding is the 15th.
Mrs. Tibbet, did you receive any paperwork? I did watch the video that day outside the North Valleys Library, all that video. Did you receive any notification or possible warning, a piece of paper like, hey, you're going to be suspended, here's a, nothing
No.
on that day?
On the 15th? No, the first time I got it was on the 20th.
Okay.
That was my first notice.
Yeah, we saw all the video of that very clearly, and I think when we're talking about the video of what transpired, Madam Chair, it's important that we do see all the videos that were sent because there are multiple ones, and that is helpful along with the pictures. So thank you for those. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Trustee Ruff.
Thank you. Ms. Tibbet, have you been suspended before from the library use?
No.
No. Okay. I do have a question about the policy itself. Is there progressive, what I would call progressive discipline? Does it start with 3 months, 6 months?
It was decided at the pre-meetings that depending on the infractions, that we would probably start with a year, depending on what was going on. After delivering the policy, explaining the issues, and moving from there. And in the policy, it does state that we will get that notification at the earliest opportunity. That day was so overwhelming with so many infractions, so many things happening, that again, we met after the event and as a group decided who would get their suspensions, and then we delivered them at that time. And we did start with a year at that event.
Is that the maximum?
It is the maximum, yes.
So you went straight to maximum?
No, yes.
Actually, Stacy,
Oh,
do you
oh,
have, sorry.
please.
May I interject just for a moment? And I don't mean to correct Ms. McKenzie. I'm Jonica Bowen, branch manager of the North Valleys Library. I was the manager on duty the day of the North Valleys Rainbow Fest and Drag Queen Story Hour. I initiated many of the written incident reports. We collected supplemental reports from other staff who were there and witnesses, but you'll see my name involved in a lot of those reports. We actually did not go straight to the first 1 year suspension.
Can I ask you to stop talking right by the microphone, Mr. Lily? Could you sit down or leave? Oh, sorry. Just so there's not a distraction. We're very distracted up here by everything going on out there. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. In this case, and as common, branch manager Kristen Ryan commented earlier about her capacity as a branch manager issuing suspensions for the library. My experience is similar. My training is the same. And in this case, we asked many of these people you're hearing from today with appeals to leave for the day. Their behavior was
impeding our ability to do our jobs as library staff, which is a violation of our conduct policy, and it was, as it happens every day in any branch across the system, that we asked them to leave for the day. Some of them flat out refused. They absolutely refused, and at that point they were issued trespass notices, which is common practice for any person who refuses to leave when asked for violation of the conduct policy or any other library policy. That's when Allied Security stepped in to issue those trespasses at different points. There were PD involved to help mediate that, decided to stay and allow them to stay. When acts are so egregious, we will go to higher levels of suspension. And that is often determined based on the situation at hand, the danger presented, and other circumstances. So there were cases where those were necessary to be 365 days. But we didn't just go to 365 days. We asked to work with folks. Please leave for the day. You're violating the policy. And these are conversations that library staff have had with many individuals over the course of years, so the policy is known. Thank you.
May I ask, is the, you refer to the term egregious. Let's stick with the person who used that. May I ask you, in terms of what you consider egregious, what exactly was the egregious act? Just so I know what you were dealing with.
Thank you. Yes, I understand what you're asking. I'm only going to speak to Ms. Tibbet's appeal in this case, because that's the one we're hearing right now. And what hasn't been discussed so far that I've heard in this is, and I think one of you referenced, I'm sorry I've lost track of who, one of you referenced the video outside. It might have been Trustee Jacks. Probably you've seen my face in much of that video. I was not in the drag story hour event inside the building. I was outside throughout the event to monitor safety, conduct, make sure the event and the volunteers had what they needed. So I was outside the entire time. What happened inside was made privy to me as the branch manager after the fact, which we made assessments based on that. But when we were outside, after the first story hour, that Ms. Tibbetts was in attendance, as well as other folks, I will cite my colleague, Kristen Ryan, who was also up front with me watching the security perimeter, saw Ms. Tibbetts coming towards us from outside of the security line where the event was being held. And it's a security line because that's where we had drawn a security line in the parking lot for safety. It's a public parking lot. You've been to North Valleys?
May I stop you for a
Yes.
moment? You've lost me just
Okay.
a little bit. Were you witness to the egregious event?
Yes, that's...
Which is what occurred in the reading hour or in
No,
the parking lot?
the suspension for Ms. Tibbetts was for accumulation, including the behavior inside the story hour, but if you read what I have written in that suspension, it also included the behavior in the parking lot of Ms. Tibbetts and others. So it was a cumulative issue. It wasn't just one incident. It was incidents throughout the day. As a branch manager, I train my staff, and I am trained to watch for behaviors of the public and staff that may imply that there is danger coming. That is what I felt when I saw Ms. Tibbetts and Victoria Meyer approaching with their phones, their body language and the tone of voice that they were using as they came at me. In any other situation, day in, day out at my library, if I saw anyone coming at me that way, with that body posturing, I would have read that as a threat. I intervened and asked what was going on. Can I help? They videoed the whole thing, as is their right. They indicated that a child was locked inside. They wanted to know why.
Great. That's, I thought, Ms. Meyer's issue. Oh, is this your issue?
She was right next to Victoria Myers in this. The behavior is what was egregious to me. If anyone else had come at me at any point in any part of my facility with that tone and that posturing, I would have perceived that as threat, and I would have asked them to leave. To me, that's an egregious motion.
The egregious act is to not leave when asked.
No, to come with threatening body posturing, threatening behavior.
behavior perceived as a threat, a physical threat.
Just sitting like this.
Yeah, like that.
Madam Chair, I have one question. Was the police called? Were the police called at the North Valley Library that day?
By outside attendees, the
police
Reno.
on site?
Oh, I'm sorry, I misspoke. We called, Allied Security called Reno PD, yes.
Okay. And nothing was filed?
Not for me, they didn't.
Not for,
One at a time.
Okay, but the police were on site, but it wasn't for you?
not for that.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Can I just ask one question, because Ms. Tibbet indicated in her presentation that we had failed to provide her the notice pursuant to NRS 241.033, which is the open meeting law, which requires notice to those individuals who are going to be discussed, specifically their alleged misconduct in a public meeting. And I think the board members were all CC'd on this line of communication. What we asked Ms. Tibbet was to waive the actual notification that's set forth in NRS 241.033 because we did not have adequate time to provide that notice and have this appeal today. Eventually, Ms. Tibbet did waive that notice. So I think her statement is slightly misleading where she indicated that I failed to provide her notice. She waived that notice.
That is what we were informed, that you would waive that notice.
I still did not get the written. They were late even giving me that. They didn't follow the NRS codes, was my point. And yes, I did waive it.
Yes.
At the very end. You saw the emails. Thank you for reading them.
I did. That's why you're here and speaking.
Yes. I was threatened I couldn't, even though I was told by this board, by you, by Stacy McKenzie, by Jeff Scott, that we would be on the agenda. But then I get an email from Herb Kaplan and Dave Solero that says I gotta waive the rights, otherwise we weren't gonna be on it. What is that?
Setup.
Extortion?
Mr.
Rigged.
Would you like to explain? And can the audience refrain from making their comments? I know you've all lectured us on First Amendment rights, and yet we're trying to conduct business here, so sidebars from the audience is very distracting. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Herb Kaplan for the record. Again, I was unaware of the practice that the notices were indicating when this would be on a library board agenda. That was erroneous, and I'd ask staff not to do that in the future. They don't have the ability to state when anything's going to be on any agenda. So I'd ask that they cease doing that in these notifications. However, any item that is placed on an agenda can be withdrawn based on a failure to meet the requirements of the open meeting law. That occurred in the June meeting because we didn't have adequate notification in how Mr. Clark's appeal was noticed. So all I was offering you was the opportunity to have this appeal heard today. And the only way that that was going to occur is if you waived the 14-day notification that's required under NRS 241.033. I indicated in my email that you were free not to waive that notice and that we would provide that notice and we would put this appeal on a future agenda, most likely the September agenda. So it was to accommodate you and to hear this appeal. It wasn't to penalize you, it wasn't to trick you. Each of these appellants were provided the same notice, the same notification, the same request.
Do you have any questions about that?
No. I was.
And we saw your waiver because we wanted it on the agenda for this meeting, and hoped you would waive it so that, that 14-day requirement, so that we could have a policy in the future. And I'm sure that was made clear to you.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, great. Are there other comments from the trustees? Any other comments or questions?
Yes, Madam Chair, Trustee Ruff, for the record. I do, in this, and we've only heard one of these so far, but I do believe that there has been behavior that warrants a suspension. I think that immediately going to a year is what I'm stumbling upon here, because there isn't sort of a progressive discipline. I do understand, for librarians listening, that there is a history with one or more of the individuals that have been suspended. I guess I'm looking at maybe a revision to the policy again, where there could be steps to the suspensions instead of going to a full year.
I have a comment. That's fine, thank you. I mean, this isn't a criminal trial, but it occurs to me that, with all due respect to the librarians, and it's not for me to say you weren't feeling threatened, or that Ms. Tibbet wasn't feeling threatened. You know, I heard behavior that can warrant concern of a threat. I'm not in a position to evaluate that, even by the videos. I will say, though, I do think, to Trustee Ruff's point, that the punishment needs to fit the crime. And I'm not sure, because we're not talking about a crime, and we're not talking about anything that was thought of less than a year, that I would agree with Trustee Ruff that perhaps a year was an overreach. Not being there, not understanding what the librarians felt in terms of a threat, not understanding what your intent was on being there, none of that is really anything this board can delve into. This is not a criminal hearing, it's not an evidentiary hearing. We're just a voluntary board hearing your version and the librarians, the manager of the library's version, and she was not a witness to part of it, but witness to other. We have photos, we've seen videos. So I would look to my fellow trustees for any recommendation, which I understand may mean taking a look at our suspension policy that may model more employers who use a series of corrective actions versus an immediate. Can we refrain from having discussions?
Sorry.
Please, thank you so much. Yeah, if I can just finish my thought, that I think what I am hearing is that, much like any other policy, this policy may be something we need to look at so that we're not moving to extraordinary measures such as a year's suspension. Now, I have librarians in the back, you know, who are, I'm feeling intimidated by, I must say. I want to show you decent respect. I want to show you the respect you deserve as professionals, managing people day in and day out in a public setting. And I've been at commissioners' meetings and city council meetings, and there is much more in the way of security and activity that goes on, and screening that goes on. So I don't want to see us step into a rabbit hole here on what occurred. There are videos, there are photos, there's testimony, which one, I shouldn't say testimony, public comment or your comments, librarian comments. So, you know, having given this some thought, my only reference point is what Trustee Ruff alluded to. I'm not sure if the punishment fits the crime, because I don't really truly understand the crime or the policy well enough to know that an immediate 1-year suspension was warranted. I've heard that they were threatened by you or felt a fear, but on the other hand, you were allowed in the library and into the event. There was probably some expectation of behavior that might occur. I would have felt that way if I were at the library. and you were holding a sign, and there may be been an assumption of your intent to disrupt the event, no proof of that one way or the other, that's not even a question. But I would look to my fellow trustees, including Ms. Mosier, who's on the line, regarding a review of the policy that enables librarians to, in a sequestered environment, review what are their perceptions and photos and videos as to whether a year is warranted on a first offense. And I don't even like the word offense because I don't see it written anywhere that that's an offense, but we'll just use that word for generic purposes. Any comments?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
For Appellant, for the record, I understand your want, your desire to have that policy brought to the board as well. That will be done sometime in the future. We're here today on Ms. Tibbet's appeal, and I understand what the trustees have stated in their comments. Essentially, it's been 2 months since the appeal the suspension was issued. The board can either uphold the appeal or deny the appeal. So at this point, the board can also say, it's been 2 months, we feel that this is adequate punishment that fits this, and I'll use this term, incident. Because there was, based on the presentation, as far as I know, Ms. Tibbet has never been suspended before. I'm unaware of any other incidents of this nature in her use of the library facilities. It's, to me, an isolated incident that is in conjunction with, let's call it what it is, a hotly contested, emotional program, an event that was occurring. So, though that's my guidance to the board, is you can either uphold the 1-year suspension, deny the 1-year suspension, or modify the amount of time that the suspension is in effect. And again, today it is essentially 2 months.
I appreciate that, and that's where I was going, but I wanted to ask my colleagues for any further commentary, or if you have other questions. Thank you.
I move that we uphold the suspension for Sandee Tibbet, but amend the length of time to 6 months.
6 months.
Is there I offer, go ahead, please.
I did have a quick question, Madam Chair, thank you. There are no more drag queen story hour events proposed on the calendar for the near future. I don't think that that's a possibility. I think this was the one contentious event that's, was kind of hosting this kind of, I would say time served would be appropriate on modification on that motion as of now. And that's all I have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Well, we had a suggestion
Sorry, I said
from Trustee Ruff and a suggestion.
It's a punishment, I know.
Yes.
There was a motion from Ruff, and then a suggestion to amend that motion from Jess.
Right.
So then Ruff has to accept that.
I have an additional amendment. I would amend the suspension to the period of time that has elapsed with an understanding that, and I can't control this, but I can only say, in the spirit of what Mr. Parks started our meeting with, diplomacy and decorum and appropriate behavior, that we reinstate your privileges with the understanding that these type of incidences, whether on a now gone drag queen story hour or any other thing you wish to protest, do not threaten any librarian, and in turn no librarian would threaten you, because threats are perceived or real, but they're in the eye of the beholder. So I can't force you to agree to this, but I'm suggesting for everyone here, because the fact that we're spending this much time on this is rather incredible to me, as I sit working a full-time job and wanting very much to serve on this library board, watching videos, reading emails, seeing statements flying back and forth, waivers, and whether waived or not, and all the things going on here. I think it gets down to poor behavior, just poor behavior. And we all should be better than that. Every one of us, whether you were engaged in that particular event or not. These are public libraries, they're free and open to the public. And yes, people are free to say things and perhaps hold a sign up, but decorum and proper etiquette and behaving like adults so that children, I think, learn from our behaviors the way they should behave, because all of this is happening or happened in front of other children. So I think the Assistant DA's comments, that it's more an incident than a crime, and we're balancing the tremendous professionalism and concern of librarians who day in and day out deal with the public and have every right to perceive or feel distress or fear or the threat of action. I would amend your amendment, which says to reduce it to 6. Yours is to end it this evening. And I would amend it further to say it would end this evening with an understanding by you that this behavior will result in further suspensions regarding any event, anything that goes on that threatens librarians and their ability to do their jobs. And I wasn't there. I watched the videos. I'm not proud of any of these photos. I don't think they do justice to the work of librarians or their professionalism or their training in trying to deter perceived fear or behavior. I don't think it does justice to their efforts to de-escalate, which they are taught to do. But we're facing something quite bizarre in my mind. I was about to say weird, but that's political. It is. I think these kind of incidents just appall me. I'm just not accustomed to, as was stated earlier, being in a library where people are photographing and taking videos and confronting each other and speaking to each other within 6 inches, and I think we're all going to have to do a better job. Drag Queen Story Hour is no longer at the public library. So hopefully, whether we agree with that decision or not, hopefully that will not give you pause to arrive with a sign in protest. Hopefully, if you are a library user, you will avail yourself of library privileges and behave in accordance with library policy. I don't know if I may ask the appellant if that is something she would agree to. I'm not attempting to put you on the spot, but I don't think you're hearing from this board that we want to deal with year-long suspensions. We're not accomplishing anything other than hearing consistent appeals and hearing she versus she said, she did, she didn't. And I frankly am dizzy from just the videos, the pictures, what went on, and ashamed that any of us behave in that manner.
Madam Chair.
I'm sorry, I'm allowed to speak.
We do have a motion.
I do know that.
That there have been suggested revisions.
Yes.
Which have to either be accepted by Trustee Ruff, or we need a second on Trustee Ruff's motion.
Thank you for timing.
I'm going to say no, or
Trustee Ruff?
I'm just going to say no.
Okay, that's what I was saying.
So could you revise your motion?
I won't revise
Not
it.
revising, you are not revising. You were saying
Pardon?
6 months.
Trustee Ruff?
Okay.
Are you withdrawing your motion?
I'll withdraw it then.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, you are withdrawing your motion.
Leah.
And about Leah Mosher, Trustee Mosher, do you have any commentary or questions?
No, but can we reiterate what is the motion?
The motion has been withdrawn.
Okay.
From Trustee Ruff. I believe, yes, I believe there's another motion that has been made as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to uphold the suspension with the change in the date to end on August 21st, 2024, with the provision that This would serve as a warning to Ms. Tibbetts moving forward from the board, kind of just as a warning with the suspension, considering time served from June 15th to August 21st. Thank you.
Any questions on that motion? Trustee Mosher, were you able to hear that motion?
I can hear it and I second it.
Okay, second, I will call for a vote on the motion by Trustee Jackson. May I have a vote by the trustees? Trustee Ruff?
Nay.
Yay.
Yay.
Aye.
3 carries it. The suspension ends at midnight tonight with the understanding that this behavior was and it confined to an incident that we don't expect to have again. For your safety, the safety of our librarians.
Thank you. I appreciate what you have done. Thank you. And I appreciate what you have said about being an example to our children, because that's what it comes down to. And we do need to be examples. I completely agree with you. We need to be good, positive examples to our children. So I would just like to say that I totally agree with what you just said. I just would like for the library staff to agree to it as well, because their behavior.
We have a motion and we approve that.
Okay.
So I understand what you're.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Let's move on to item C, discussion and possible